Hello and welcome back to the Cosmic Engine for another episode of Emote. Now, first off, before I start, I would just want to say a big thank you to the positive feedback that I received from the first episode. It means so much to me, so thank you very much for that. Today's episode, which will be the second episode of the series, is going to be about number one, choosing your game, and number two, character creation. Now, it must be said that I will not be going into all aspects of character creation in this episode. I may do some in later episodes. I just want to give you a very basic outline and some very quick guidance to creating your character. So let's start off with number one, choosing your game. And you're already asking yourself, why is that important in terms of role playing? Well, it matters immensely. Now, there's two reasons why you need to choose your game very carefully. The first is it's really important that you choose a game that you're actively interested in. The reason for this is that if you're not actively interested in a game's setting or a game's backstory or a game's universe, the in-game events, the out-of-game events, everything that's encompassed with that particular world, then if you're not particularly interested in that, it will show through and ultimately damage your RP experience. The reason for this is it can almost alienate some players in the fact that you don't really know what's going on. You have no active interest in learning about the backstory and the lore of the game, and therefore when other characters are talking about things that happened in the past in terms of lore or kind of anything to do with that, the wider universe, the expanded universe, if you will, you will be alienated from that conversation. Now, of course, you're not going to know everything about a particular game when first stepping in, but if you're not actively interested in learning, then eventually that is going to damage your RP experience. And secondly, it's not just about enjoying the game's setting. You also have to enjoy the game's mechanics and the way the game plays to some degree. Now, the reason for this is because role-playing in MMOs especially is about creating a story and using that game's construct to enhance your RP experience, to enhance your immersion, enhance your imagination, and give a visual look to what your imagination perceives. So it's really important that you enjoy the game in terms of playing the actual game. Otherwise, it's really difficult to find the motivation to even log in, because if you don't want to be there in the first place, how then are you going to muster the enthusiasm and the motivation to roleplay for extended periods of time? It's not going to happen. So it's really important that you choose your game carefully. It doesn't matter what the game is, whether it's World of Warcraft, Rift, EVE, Star Trek Online, Star Wars: The Old Republic, or the array of MMOs that are out there now. What you really need to focus on when choosing your game, if you think, I don't know which one to play, it's really important that you focus on you. It's really important that you focus on finding something that piques your interest. Something about that game, that setting, that world that really speaks to you and resonates with you and gets your imagination and your passion flaring. It's important that you have an active, enthusiastic willingness to learn about that universe, because obviously no one knows everything about a particular game, but it's important your willingness to learn and your enthusiasm for that world and that lore and that story will really show through. So it's so important that you choose your game carefully, and it's okay to try out a few games. It's not quite clicking with you, move on to the next. Find something that you love, that you're passionate about, and that will really show through and also give you the motivation to really enhance your role-playing experience and enhance your knowledge of the game. One thing I do want to touch on also, I'm going to move on at some point, I do promise. One thing I do want to touch on though is the game's main story. Now, every MMO has a main storyline, and it's okay not to enjoy that. Now, what I mean by this, as long as you are enjoying the world that it's set in, you're enjoying most things about the game, but maybe you didn't like the main storyline, that's okay. Role-playing is about creating your own story within the confines of that world. It's okay to not like the story that the devs gave you. It's about creating your own story. So don't worry about it if you didn't enjoy the game's main story, because not everyone does, and many role players will tell you they've played several MMOs that they hated the game's main story in, but they stuck around because they loved that universe. So don't worry if that happens to you. Okay, so let's move on to character creation, finally. Now, character creation, if you're brand new to RP, this is mostly aimed at you. Experienced role players know how to create characters of varying characteristics, but I do have a couple of really essential tips for people who are dipping their feet into role-playing and want to know how they go about creating a character. So here they are. So first off is appearance. Now, appearance means very little in the long run, but it's important from when you first start that you're happy to have a character you want to play. Because at the end of the day, that character is going to be on your screen quite a lot. So it's really important that you spend a lot of time in the in-game character creator creating a character that you're happy to look at a lot of the time. So it's really important that you spend a good bit of time creating that art, that superficial appearance for your character to make sure that you're happy with it and it's something that you're not going to be unhappy with later down the line. Secondly, stick to what you know. Now, choosing a character to roleplay as in terms of their personality can be the most fun but hard work thing you do. And what I always say is stick to what you know. Experienced role players, they like to push boundaries and play characters and have new experiences that are out of their comfort zone. I always advise new role players to do the opposite. Play a character that is familiar to you. Use familiar characteristics, maybe some of your own characteristics, some of your likes, your dislikes, things like that. Stick to what you know, but make it fun. Make it with a twist. If you're a very sarcastic person, and you like a bit of sarcasm, why not play a dwarf mage who makes sarcastic remarks as soon as something happens? Something like that. It's okay. The possibilities are absolutely endless. What's most important is that you are comfortable in the character that you're playing. That's most important. You need to be happy with your character, feel comfortable in your character, and once you feel comfortable in that character and think, I can play this character, I know these characteristics, I can do this, your confidence will grow, and then that will later on give you the confidence and the desire to try new characters. And as your experience grows, as you hone your role-playing skills as such, you will be able to push your boundaries, go out your comfort zone, and have fun with other types of characters. But when you're first dipping your toes in, I always advise people to stick to what you know. It's so important that you're comfortable and not out of your comfort. Thirdly, write a backstory. Write a short story, a long story. If you're a writer, write a long story if you wish. Do whatever you please. Just write a story. The reason I always advise to do this is because, one, a lot of good role-playing guilds will ask you to provide a character bio on application. The reason they do this is to, one, judge your writing ability, two, judge your role-playing skills, and three, judge your imagination. Now, I say judge 3 times there. It's not quite like that. A lot of guilds just kind of want to get a feel for your character to make sure it fits in with their guild structure. It's not about judging you as a person. It's not about judging the character that you've chosen. It's about just trying to get a feel for their character themselves. The second reason writing a backstory will help is for the fact that it will help your role-playing. It will give you a source to start your role-playing. So when you jump in game and someone comes up to you and says, in character, hello, where are you from? You will be able to say, well, originally I was from such a village in the Eastern Continent, and now I'm here. I've came here over for whatever reason. It gives you a source. It gives you something to go off. The third reason is when you write a short story, write stuff that perhaps events, traumatic events, big events that happens in the character's life before they are at the point now. The reason this is really good is that you get a feel for the character. You get a feel for why they made that decision, why they would make future decisions, and it helps you kind of engage with the character as well. So that when you're starting to RP, for example, a decision is put in front of you in character, you can then think back, oh well, this happened to my character, and he would be wary about this situation, so I'm going to make this decision. And it really does help you roleplay a lot better and a lot stronger earlier if you write a backstory, and it really does help with guild applications. Fourthly, when creating your character, do not make your character overpowered. What I mean by this is, you've got to remember that your character is another person within the setting of the world. Your character is not a hero of the story. Your character is just another person. I'm not saying that they're going to be weak or anything like that. You can roleplay a warrior, a mage, whatever. For example, I roleplay a Sith in Star Wars: The Old Republic. Now, as a Sith, I would have the use of the Force. However, when I first started, I was an apprentice, so my Force use would be very limited. And, for example, if I got into a fight with a Sith Lord, I would of course lose, because the Sith Lord is stronger. Now, I'm just putting this in very basic terms, but it's so... Role-playing is about telling a story, like I've said many times. And as such, it's not about winning or losing. It's about experiencing and telling a story. Sometimes your character is going to get beat up, other times your character is going to beat someone else up. It's okay to lose, and it's important that you do lose for good character development. Role players hate someone who's overpowered. There's nothing worse than having a role-playing fight with someone who refuses to get hurt, because it just makes the whole experience frustrating and just not fun to play at all. After all, who wants to fight someone who cannot be hurt, who's basically invincible? It's boring, it's dull, it doesn't happen for a fact. It's not realistic. Your character may have powers given on the setting and on the story and the world that it's set in, but you have to make those powers realistic. You're not God, you're not invincible, you're not indestructible. It's about balance your character. Your character is going to have flaws, your character is going to have weaknesses, and those weaknesses and flaws are as important as your character's strengths and good points. It's so important. So make sure you don't make your character overpowered. It's okay when starting, if you want to start off at a low level. For example, again, in Star Wars: The Republic, if you're joining a Sith or Jedi guild, perhaps you would like to start off almost underpowered in the way that you would, a normal apprentice or a Padawan would. They start off at the very bottom, and then as they go through their role-playing experience, they build, character develop, gain new abilities, gain more insight, gain more wisdom, etc., etc., and they develop that way. It's completely up to you, but it's really essential that you don't make your character overpowered, because it puts all other role players off, and it generally gets a negative response. And lastly, if in doubt, ask. Role players do not bite. I do not bite. They do not bite. It's okay to ask questions that you're unsure of. If you want to know something, ask. It's okay not to know stuff. It's fine. It's okay to make mistakes. No one's going to bite your head off. Everyone had to start somewhere. I did. I still don't. I still get lots of things wrong. I make mistakes daily. People are going, that's wrong. And I'm like, oh, yes, it is. It's okay to make mistakes. And it's important that you do, because making mistakes is the only way you learn. Asking questions is the only way you learn. And it's so important that you do that. Find a good community within the game that you want to play, and that community will help you to no end. You will meet friends. You will meet some of the funniest, intelligent people you've ever met. Trust me, it's so rewarding. Don't be afraid not to know stuff, because not everyone does. There's experienced role players who've been playing the same game for years who still do not know everything about that particular universe or that particular lore. So it's okay to ask, and it's okay to make mistakes. Do not stress about it. And before I go, just remember, role-playing is about story, but most importantly, it's about fun. It's about having fun, having interaction, really getting your creative side on there, and having fun with your imagination, and having fun with other people. There is lots of ins and outs how to do role-playing and how to make it fair and how to make it balanced, etc., etc. And I will go into those over the series. But remember, it's about story, and it's about a hell of a lot of fun. Because if it wasn't fun, people wouldn't do it. So thank you so much for watching the second episode. Do leave a comment, like and subscribe. Please share the video because you know it is aimed at new role players and we want to get as many new role players in as we can. So thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time.